we're trying to do our best to give you guys resources to help educate yourselves as we move through these unique times that we're all in right now. So we have created a study hall page. The URL is on the screen there, and you will need to register, if you don't have one already, a MyETC account in order to get in there. And the reason for that is we have several sections of study hall events. So some are only for our dealers and reps. So if you're a dealer and rep, you'll have access to those. Some are only for our certified technicians, so it's sessions for those as well. So the schedule that we have developed here is on Tuesdays, like today. We'll be doing topics specifically geared towards end users like yourselves. And those topics will vary from consoles to theory and just different events. You'll see as we release those throughout the schedule. On Thursdays, we kind of have a double header on Thursdays. We have an EOS console at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And then we will do a hog console topic at 1 p.m. Eastern time every Thursday. So we've started to kick that off last Thursday with great success, and we'll continue to do that moving forward. And then on Wednesdays will be events specifically for our reps and dealers, and Fridays will be events for our ETC certified technicians. So some other things we're doing in Study Hall. We have office hours on Instagram, so check us out over on the gram. We've got a video of the day, which you can find on the Study Hall page as well as on YouTube. And many of you, thousands of you actually, have already found that our learning stage classes are free. We've seen a huge uptick in registrations on those, which is awesome.
Something like 32,000 classes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane.
So if you haven't checked out those already, please look up for those. There's several console classes, there's some DMX classes, color theory classes, and several others as well. And then our various offices are around the globe are putting on different events locally as well. So if you are not in the US, please check with your local ETC office and see what they're offering. And as David said at the beginning, we are recording all of these sessions. So if you have to pop out early or you come in late or you're not able to make one, don't fear, those will be posted on that YouTube channel, as David said. It does take a couple of days for us to process it from WebEx, so it won't be up later today, but give us a few days and then the session will be live up there. And then just a quick preview of what's coming up later this week and early next week. And again, those are all posted in the study hall section of MyETC. So go ahead and check those out if any of those look interesting to you. And that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions about the kind of the format or anything I just covered? Go ahead and type it into the Q&A box and we can certainly answer those. And otherwise, I'm going to kick it over to Lowell Olcott and let him take us away with Augmented for Educators.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much, Rob. And thank you all for joining us. I don't need to say that we're all in this together. I think this industry, more than any other, has really banded together in a pretty incredible way. So that's fantastic. We're looking forward to talking with this through this with you. First off, just a little bit about me. I am the product manager of integrated technologies at ETC. And that means I'm in charge of the Color Source console, the Echo Touch, the response networking products, the concert and conductor products, Augmented, and also all of our apps. So I have a pretty deep knowledge in a bunch of ETC products. So feel free to ask anything, and we're here to help you out. I just want to take a moment and say that many of you who are joining us are educators, and this is pretty incredible what you're being asked to do, and we have the utmost respect and admiration for you in trying to accomplish what we're all facing right now. So the Study Hall initiative, this particular webinar is all built directly around that, and know that we are here for you in any way we can help. So just a couple of session goals here. I want to start off with just a real brief intro into what EOS 3.0 and Augmented is. Talk a little bit about how to sign up for the beta to get access to it. go over where we're going to find some resources, and then jump in and how to get started. And I'll going to switch right over to the software and just give you some live instruction on how that. I've got some example show files that we're going to share with you guys as well. And then we'll finish up with some Q&A, and just Rob and I are here to chat and talk for whatever you have questions about at the end of this. One little bit of a disclaimer. Now, if you guys did see, we released our Augmented April Fool's joke last week. That golden retriever in there is my young puppy, Riley, and he is around. And all of a sudden, if you hear a bunch of dog barking, that's what's going on there. He just wants to join in the conference call. He's pent up just like the rest of us. So jumping on in. So talking about EOS 3.0 and Augmented. So as we jump in, what is Augmented? It is a 3D programming environment, and this was the brainchild of our founder, Fred Foster. He came to a bunch of us and started talking about this vision he had to truly program from different perspectives, taking it a little bit further than just a built-in visualizer, making it something that really is a tool for you from concept to closing night. And as we certainly are looking at some concept conversations and some ways that you can use this as a tool when you're not actually in your space, I think that has never been more real and more needed. This will be part of the EOS 3.0 release, which is a free release when it comes out. We are in a full open beta right now, so that means anyone has access to it, and we'll talk through how to get into that. But it is planned to release at some point this summer. As we all know, schedules are a little bit up in the air right now. But it is actively being worked on and supported. We have about 2,000 people in the beta group right now. I would imagine after this week or next week, we'll probably have a few more. And we are really excited to see where that goes. So where does Augmented live? Two different places. It can either live inside your console if you have a Windows 7 or greater machine. And the easiest way to take a look at that is if you have at least one display port on the back of your console, that means you can run it natively on the console. If it's got the display port, that means it's got the graphical ability to be able to run that. For anyone who wants to run it on a Mac or PC, this will also become a full version of a full part of ETC Nomad. And so that's what we're going to talk about primarily today. So you can download it, you can run it on your machine. We do have a couple of stipulations for that. As I mentioned, with the console, it does have to be a Windows 7 machine. It has to have that display port on the back. And then you could also use these in conjunction together, so tie the console and the Nomad together. But in order to go to 3.0 at all, you do need to be on that Windows 7. We unfortunately had to deprecate support for Windows XP, but we had a good 12-year run on that, so we're feeling pretty okay with that. Taking a look just through the requirements for PC and Mac, it's pretty straightforward here, not huge restrictions. I do want to point out we do have a OS X Mojave, so 1014 or greater restriction. And that is just because we are using a decent amount of the features that were added in Mojave and Catalina that were not available in previous versions of the Mac operating system. Hard choice for us to make there, but we really wanted to take advantage of those new features, and it's making 3.0 and Augmented function better. All of this is posted on the resources pages we'll talk about in a little bit, so don't feel like you have to memorize all this right now. So jumping in, first thing you need to do...
Before we move on, there's a question about if mini display port counts. And
yes, mini display port does count.
Correct.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay,
yep. As long as you have any form of display port. And it doesn't have to be all display ports. So if you have a console which has a display port and a DVI, that's still fine, as long as you see at least one of any of the display ports. Awesome question there. Thank you. Okay, jumping in to just some steps here now. Many of you have been with us throughout the beta process. This will be a little bit of a repeat, but if you are working towards this for the first time, or if you're sharing this with your students, I did want to just take a moment and talk through just how to sign up with beta. In order to have come to this webinar, you need to have a MyETC account. So hopefully you already have one of those. If you do not, or if your students do not, all you have to do is go to etcconnect.com/myetc. You'll have an option to either log in if you have an account or create a new account by clicking the register button. Click that register button. We just want to know a little bit about you, your first name, last name, display name, email. We promise we won't sell any of your information. It's just for us to send you information. And you can, of course, opt out or opt in ETC emails if you have that preference choice. Once you've registered, you can come in here and you're going to find a MyTC page. Now, don't be too concerned if yours looks a little bit different than mine. Everybody has a slightly different based off what your role is, where part of the world you're in. They are going to customize a little bit, but everybody should have a sort of basic MyTC. What we're going to do next is go to the forums, and you can either click on the forums on the taskbar, you can click on them down at the bottom, or you can go to community.etcconnect.com. Options there. If this is your first time coming in, you will have to just check that you agree to our terms of service, and this is that you are joining our community. Once you are in here, you'll have access to all of our community options. Now, depending on who you are and what type of account you have, you'll see some of these or not. So if you've joined one of our betas previously, you might see that. If you haven't, you'll have some different options there. We're going to go to the Open Betas tab. And once we come in here, you can join any of our open betas. Don't feel like you just have to join the EOS one if you're interested in working with Concert or any of the color source. Those are in open betas right now. Concert 4.1 is actually adding Mac support for Concert. So if you're a Mac user and would like to help us out with some testing there, we would love to have you, not just part of the EOS one, sort of a shameless plug there on my side. But for today, we are talking about the EOS Open Beta 3.0, and that's where we're going to jump in here. Once you come in here, you will have to just click on this EOS Open Beta 3.0 requires membership. So click on that, and it'll join. And that's all the setup you have to do, just the one time. And there's also a link down at the bottom here, community.etcconnect.com, Open Beta, EOS Open Beta 3.0. We also have that posted, I think on Facebook. It's definitely on MyTC. It's on the etcconnect.com/Augmented page. You can also use that to jump directly to this page. All right, so once you're in here, I want to just take you through a quick tour of where we have some resources and what we can do inside there. So the first thing when you're going to come in, you're going to see these different forums. So the first one is our Open Beta General Comments and Help. This one is really important. This is where we're going to have all of the different welcome informations, all of our manuals and quick start guides. This is also where we're going to post any of our software. Next one underneath that is our bug reporting area. If you have been working with this and you run into something odd and you'd like to take a look, or if you want to see if somebody else has run into that same thing, the bug reporting area is where we're going to want you to post comments about that, saying that you saw this thing. One of our beta moderators or one of our developers will get in touch with you and work through. Now, remember, there are many, many of you and not many, many of us. So if we don't respond immediately, please forgive us. We will get there. There just have been a wide variety of people posting lots of things recently. Underneath that, we have a special area for fixture and FPE. We'll talk about FPE in a minute, feedback. But if you're working inside of Augmented and you see, hey, the gobo rotation is not right on this particular Mac Aura or something like that, please, if you can put that in the fixture area. We'd like to know, issues about what's going on with the fixtures in there, not necessarily in the bug reporting. And that just comes down to who's keeping an eye on which forum. So people who are fixture programmers are watching that area versus the bug reporting. If you put it in a different place, don't worry about it. One of our beta moderators will catch that and move it around. But if you can just help us out and try to help us with that last one. And then lastly, we have this new features page. And what that is going to be is a place where we're just going to be constantly listing things as we add them in there. So it's a good place to, if you've stepped away for a little bit, you want to come back and take a look and see what's been added. We also describe the features and give a little bit of screenshots, explanations, things inside there. So those are our 4 questioning areas. We also have an active ideas area, and this is where we're going to put in feature requests. So one of the things that's really powerful about Augmented is it's this whole new world for us. We're creating this world that we can go in many, many different directions, and we want you to come with us and we want you to help us out with that. So if you have an idea, feel free to go to this feature request area and add that in there. It's a slightly different type of forum, so it's not sort of the question and answer. It's more of a log, and then we can respond with status of request and things like that. But that's a really great one. So you can see example here, quick access to manufacturer or unit and patch by typing in the name. So some really great suggestions have come through there. Now that is for all EOS things, not just for Augmented. The one thing is with feature requests, we have a pretty strong idea of what we want in our first release of 3.0. So I can't guarantee that everything we put in there will be added in there. But one of the product management team, so myself, Matt Halberstatter, and Valentino, will respond to you inside there and talk about things we have with feature requests. And we might start a discussion, ask you some ideas about your feature, things like that. We've been keeping a pretty good eye on that area. All right. So if you go into that general comments and help, there are a couple things I want to point out inside here. The first one is this greetings, general housekeeping, and getting started one. And then after that, if you click on that, you're going to come in. There are just a whole bunch of things inside here, just talking a little bit about what 3.0 is, some examples of how we would like you to comment back. It's just sort of our welcome, get started. But the biggest thing is if you look down on the bottom side on that right-hand screen, there is the Augmented Quick Start Guide and the Augmented Beta Reference Guide. Those are our manual options that we have for you right now. These are PDFs. They are constantly being updated as we add new things, and they will be the foundation towards our manual when we get close to release. So those are two really powerful PDFs that will talk you through a lot of what we're going to go through today and have some options for how you can interact there. If you go back to that forum resources page, the last thing that we want to talk about is where we're going to be posting the software. Sorry, this screenshot is a little bit old. Build 3.12 is the most recent one that went up this morning. So you can come in here, you can find that. If you go into that link, you'll have an option for actually downloading the software and working with that. So once you go inside there, this is the example from 3.05. As I mentioned, 3.12 is the most recent. It'll talk about what changed in the last one, any issues or known things that we might be running into. For instance, in the 3.12 one, it's saying, if you've been using this particular type of fixture, make sure to update your fixture profiles. Different options inside. And then down at the bottom, you're going to find a bunch of links to where you can actually directly download this. This has changed just a little bit in the last couple of days. There are less links now, so it should be a little bit easier to figure out what you want to download. It takes you to a PDF with links to all of the direct downloads. All right, so some other resources. If you go to etcconnect.com/augmented, we have the Perspectives tab, and this is where we have stored all of the Feature of the Week videos. So starting at USITT last year, I started doing a whole series of Feature of the Week videos. There are quite a few of them. And it's basically just talking about something that I thought was interesting or showing you a little bit of training. These are all directly available from this site. They're also on our YouTube page. You can go through and just see a little bit of hands-on demonstration of a feature or another. So I highly recommend taking a look at those. They're a great little bit. I will also take a moment to say that we are getting ready to release a huge amount of training videos, formal training videos, not these sort of one-offs that I did, that are Rob and Nick Huntsman, that will also have accompanying workbooks, things like that. So we don't have an exact release date on that because we are furiously trying to finish all those up, but hopefully we'll have some more information on those going live in the not too distant future. And that will be really in-depth, step-by-step training on everything, where these are a little bit scattershot of individual features. Cool. Rob, any questions or anything before we jump to the next section?
Yeah, before we had a couple of hardware questions that I'd like to address real quick before we go too much further. So there was a question about Ion upgrades. So if you have a Windows XP Ion, and if you look on the back of your console, if you have one network port, then that means you have an XP console. We do have, and we've been doing this program for several years, an upgrade program. So this is through your ETC dealer, and you ship the console. It gets a little trip back to the motherland. We give you a new hard drive, new motherboard, and a new I/O board on the back. So you get two network interface cards, you get display ports, and most importantly for Augmented, you get the Windows 7 embedded operating system. That program, that upgrade program, will be ending at the end of this year, at the end of 2020. So if you have an older console and you want to look at getting it upgraded, I would suggest calling your dealers, and I know some of them are probably closed right now, but as soon as you're able to communicate with them and work out a timeline for that. And that is for any Ion Classic console, any Element 1 console that is Windows XP. Unfortunately, this program is not available for EOS Classics. Those cannot be upgraded. And if you have any further questions about those details, feel free to email your local ETC sales office, and we can help you work through those questions. There's also, I'll post it in the chat here. There's a really good support article on this topic as well. I'll pull that up and post it in a moment. And then there's a question. Oh, go ahead, Lowell.
I was just going to do another little shameless plug. If you haven't had a chance to check out on your support page, which is support.etcconnect.com, there's some fantastic information and questions and answers there.
And then I've got a couple of questions in the chat here. So Isaac asks, are most of the bugs augmented related, or should we be on the lookout for some bugs in the basic programming functions that existed in previous EOS versions? And I'm assuming that's in regard to the forum.
Yeah, so while Augmented is the primary thing that we've added in 3.0, there are lots of other EOS-related changes and fixes. So yeah, we want to hear about everything. If you see something weird, whether it's EOS or Augmented related, please report that. And there's also been quite a large amount of fixes. You can check out that in the patch notes and see what information we've shared with you there. But yeah, it's not just we added Augmented. There are lots of other things in 3.0.
And then Lee asks, said Lowell said build 3.12 is out this morning, but that's not showing on the general comments page yet.
I'll have to take a look at that.
I can look that up too while we're going.
But yeah, I downloaded 3.12 off of it just a little bit before we started this, so might have just been a refresh thing. Definitely take a look at that again.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
Cool. Anything else, Rob, or we get to jump on in?
Nope, we can keep going. Thanks.
Fantastic. All right, so for those of you who have not had a chance to play around with Nomad, once you've installed it, you have the ability just to launch that. And you're going to come up with a bunch of different options here. For what we're going to be working with today, we're going to do offline with Viz, and that's going to give you the full features of Augmented and all of the other features of EOS. It just won't actually output any data. So if you're connected to a rig, you won't see any control there. If you have one of our Nomad dongles and put that inside of your computer, that will change from offline with Viz to primary, and you can use that. Notice down at the bottom there is another one, which is Augmented Tether. If you have two laptops or a console and a laptop, you can designate one of the laptops as a tether machine. And basically, it starts the Nomad software in sort of an Augmented only mode. So if you want to use your console and a secondary laptop, you put your secondary laptop inside of Tether. One big thing about that, you do not need a Nomad dongle for that. So that can be downloaded and used on any Mac or PC that's compatible for free. No additional sales or anything required for that. So if you have your Ion, your Geo, your EOS, whichever, EOSTI, and you don't want to give up some monitor space, or you want to have that secondary screen, you've got the option for using that through Tether. The other thing, and we'll just be really honest with you guys, we designed these consoles not to be high-end graphics machines. They are targeted at doing many, many different things. So your Windows XP Ion from 6 years ago probably does not have the same graphics ability of your laptop. And that's just the way they were designed. It's just the features they need. So for instance, I have a Geo at 5 on my desk at work, and I have an Alienware laptop that's sitting next to it. And my Alienware laptop looks absolutely fantastic compared to what I can do on the Geo. Well, on the consoles, we do actually limit you to a low or medium quality and rendering setting, where on a secondary Mac or PC, you could go all the way up to ultra, depending on what your specifications are. So just really some interesting use cases of why you might want to use Tether. For what we're working with today, we're just going to hit OK on our offline. You're going to get this little notice that says that we're really using this as an offline tool. It's not suitable for lighting control. It's just telling you that you're going to be outputting at a slightly reduced rate, not using that same normal output. All right, we'll get into what we're actually going to play with in that next, but I want to talk just a little bit about sort of a workflow here. So inside of the concepts of Augmented, we're going to start a new show file. And then these next two, you can really sort of do in any order. I personally like adding my scenic elements first, and then putting my patch and my fixtures information around it. It's totally up to you, the order you want to do. And then we're going to get into programming. But if you don't have some scenic elements, if you don't have any fixtures or anything to play with, we are also going to make some sample show files available. So as of today, if you go to eccconnect.com/augmented, there is a new download section. And inside of that download section, you will find 3 zip files with these 3 different show files. Now, I will be very honest with you. I am not a lighting designer, but I made all of these. I think they look kind of fun, but they are by no means art. Except for the proscenium one, I actually had Tom Littrell, who is a professional lighting designer, do that one. But I just kind of put some stuff together to have everybody have something to play with. If you go to the forums, there are actually a number of people who have created Quarantine the Musical and all sorts of funny things that are sharing them around. So these are just some examples to get you started to have some play. So the first one is this augmented proscenium. It's a proscenium theater. It's got full drapery set up, all the different line sets, a bunch of conventionals, some LEDs, and a small mover set. They are unfocused. So they're just in there in sort of a rep plot situation. But we thought this would be kind of fun to make available to you. So it's kind of set up like a dance piece in the beginning, but if you wanted to add a little bit of scenic element on top and have your students go through and focus all of these using a rep plot, we thought that could be kind of interesting. I did also include a Vectorworks file for this one. So you can come in and you can play around with that, and you can either use the Vectorworks import tool to bring it in, or you can just have that as something to go with. We did put some gels in there. We did patch everything or address everything. Different options, so that'll be available as our first option. The second one, we have a couple of default venues in there that I'll talk about when we jump into the software in a second, but showing you the ability to use its first stage. I made a little fashion show. That felt like a fashion show for me. So this is mostly movers and some LEDs, a couple of conventionals, and if you take a look, there's that bar of lights down at the bottom, which is actually set up for pixel mapping. So if you want to use augmented pixel mapping and work with your students on some pixel mapping ideas, that's all set up and ready for you too. So this one will include the show file and also will be a PDF with the groups and the channels all listed out for you. So you can work with any of that. The last one is just a little concert, bit of a thrust stage, and it's got a bunch of LEDs and movers. I picked the Soul Frame 750s from High-End Systems just because I like them. And they're all set up there. There's 16 of those, a bunch of color source par, downlights, and some spotlights. Now, this is by no means art. This is just me playing around, but it's a great place to start. And you can go through, you can take this and rearrange things or put different fixtures in, have your students work with adding or subtracting or refocusing. This one will come with the show file, and it will also come with the patch information and some group setup in there as well. So again, all of those are available on the website, eccconnect.com/augmented. And if you go there, there is a download section. But right now, so yeah, you come over there in our document section. These will be right there. I will also put this PowerPoint up in this section as well once we're done with this section. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in to the software. Unless there's any questions, Rob?
There's one about where to change rendering quality, but I think we'll probably look at that in the software.
Yeah, give me 1 sec. We're going to jump on in and we'll start playing around. All right, so I'm going to start up from a fairly fresh install, jump right into that offline with Viz, and we're going to see this boot on in. And yeah, it even came up on the same slide. So from a fresh show, just after installing the update, you're going to see something very similar to this. And make sure I'm actually in something brand new here. So first thing we need to do is go into our tab menu, and we're going to open the Augmented tab. It's tab 38. If you haven't played around in 3.0, you'll notice that this menu looks a little bit different. Now, the first time you open Augmented, like you saw when I first opened on my screen, you're going to get that little spinning wheel just as it sets everything up. As you open and close your tabs after that, you're not going to see that again. It's just going to be for that first option, giving you the ability to set up. So this is the Augmented tab, and we're just going to take a quick tour around that. So you've got your window. Now this can be split into any of the tab setups, just like normal inside of any other EOS tab option. But inside here, you have some edit functionality, the camera tool, and we'll go through some of these different options in a minute. focus, and then some of our different display options. Now down at the bottom, these last two are going to be how we control our light rendering, our different ambience, and we'll talk about that. And then inside here, this is where we're going to set quality. So options, quality. You've got 4 different options for quality: low, medium, and high. I'm going to run on medium today just because we're streaming this, and I am running on my little Dell, which is not a massive graphics computer. Underneath that, you've got 3 different options for lighting. So optimized is going to be the most processor unintensive. So we'll work on just about any machines. But you see things like we're not going to do the shadow cuts here. We're going to be a little bit more blunt with gobos. Approximated is sort of the halfway in between optimized and realistic. It's not going to show cast shadows. And this is one that I normally run in. If you do have a machine that is high in graphics power, going all the way to realistic, that's when we're going to get all the different shutter cuts, shadows, different options. Sorry, shadow cuts, not shutter cuts. And that's going to be the most accurate, the most powerful. So if you have a really awesome machine, you want to turn on ultra and realistic, go for it. And as I said, you know, my little Dell, I try to keep it around here. My Alienware, I absolutely go to ultra and realistic. It's just going to give you the options. But the thing here is we're trying to make it available to as many machines as possible. So if you have students who don't have hugely powerful machines, you're still going to get a lot of the same functionality and same control running in optimized low. Medium approximated, I found for most machines is a great place to live. All right, so before we get to talk about some fixtures, I'm just going to talk a little bit about some scenic elements and some options here. So I'm going to jump into our edit mode. And once this comes in, I get a couple more tools we're going to talk about and some new windows here. So the first one over here is our library. And this is where we are going to add non-lighting objects. So any of our scenery pieces or venues, things like that, from the library to the stage view. Our hierarchy over here is going to be anything that is currently in that. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Inspector is going to be where we can make modifications to things we currently have selected. Before we jump into that, though, I'm actually going to go into setup and make one change. I'm going to go into Augmented and just make sure I'm in the particular units I want to be in. So I would like to work in feet and inches today. You can work in feet and inches, or meters. Okay, so jumping back into our edit mode, I'm going to start just taking a look inside of our stock file. So inside of stock, we've got a number of different options, different architectural pieces, some drapery, furniture, objects, some outdoor things, people, shapes, truss, venues. We'll start off with venues. So I'm just going to drop in a proscenium space here. And we'll talk a little bit about how we can work with that. Now, you do always start off with a ground. If you've added in a secondary venue, you probably want to go and just delete that ground because I don't want to have a sort of conflicting thing on my zero pane. Now, once we've added something, let's talk a little bit about how we navigate here. So first thing I'm going to do is just talk a little bit about the camera options. So if you right-click and drag, you can sort of pan your camera around. Using your arrow keys, you can do your up and down, your left and right, and then your mouse wheel is going to give you that forward and back. You can then use these together. So I'm going to hold down my right mouse, move that around, and my arrow keys now become a dolly. So I can use this to sort of fly around and see anywhere I want inside of my space. Now, as we're switching between all of these different locations and positions, if you find one you like, I'm going to come over here and say, I like this one. I'm going to go to camera, and you have bookmarks. So I'm going to come and say, push and hold on this. That is now my bookmark number 1. So I can jump between my home and my bookmark 1. We do give you some pre-made ones inside here, and also some quick look options as well. So using these together to navigate around. Now, when you are inside of the edit mode, you do also have the ability to use the WASD keys. So if you're comfortable with that, now that is just inside of edit because we need those WASD keys for keyboard shortcuts when you're actually out inside of EOS. So as I work through here, I can come in, I can continue to add as many things as I want. So let's go in and we're going to just add a piece of pipe. So to add that, just like we added the venue, I'm going to just drop that onto my stage. It's now there. Now we've got a number of different tools we can use here. So I can navigate this around. But what I actually want to do is select that and come over and talk about my inspector for a second. So inside my inspector, I've got the ability to rename it. You can do some color coding of it. Now, this is just going to work on the iconography up here. We are working on some options for actually being able to color objects inside here. That will probably not be in our first release, but we know it's definitely been massively requested. As I work down here, I've got some options for just setting up my information. So first things first, I want to come in and I want to make this a 20 foot. So I'm just going to type in 20 there, and I've got my different options to position. I can use any of my tools around, or I can type in specific information. So if I want to center this, I'll just put this at a -10. If you want to have it from the other direction, we can just rotate around that z-axis, and now change this to 10. Just giving you the ability to modify and place these wherever you want. If I bring in something like flowers, something from our default, and I just want to make the whole thing bigger, you can come in and work with all of this, but we do also have the scale tool. So I can come in and make some really, really big flowers, really, really small. Now you can scale in any of the 3 dimensions, or you can scale all of them linked together using the white box down at the bottom. And then the same options for move. I can move them in any of the 3 dimensions. Notice as I move things around, it's going to give you that reference point option from below. Now, if you would like to bring in your own things, we're going to go down into File, and I just hit F9 to get into my CIA. And I'm going to come in, and we now have the option to bring in augmented scenic objects. So I can come down. Bring in an exported one. Here's one that our friends at Vectorworks shared with us for some testing. So once I import this particular option, now this is a fairly big one, so it's taking some time. If you're importing smaller objects, this will be faster. We support a huge amount of different file import types. Once you have the option to bring it in, you're going to set your scale information, whether you want to have the origin as in the model or a specific option, and we'll hit OK here. And now inside of my library, I have that new option, so I can come over and say, all right, I actually want to bring in this whole stage. I'm going to just drag that onto my my space there. It's going to bring in there. I'm just going to get rid of our CDM now for talking about this other space. So here is a full file brought in from Vectorworks for the model. So different options for however you want to work. We'll delete this one for right now and just go back into some of our other options. So it's kind of just a rinse and repeat option from here. So add in whatever individual pieces you want as you continue working through. And again, just navigating around, placing wherever you need it. All right, so we've come in, we've added some.
Hey, Lowell, while we're right here.
Yeah.
A couple quick ones. Question about what file formats can be imported.
There are many, many file formats. My 2 personal preferences are FBXs and Collada or DAE files. They are really nice, complete formats. We do have a rather huge amount of other support. That is all detailed inside of the manual. But Collada and FBXs and 3DS files seem to work the best. They just include the most amount of data, and they're open source, so most other 3D modeling softwares will support them.
And then one other quick one. At this time, can we change the origin of objects? So the example they asked about specifically was like a pipe. Like, could we move the origin of a pipe?
Not right now, but is definitely something we want to add in the future.
Great, thanks.
Cool. All right, so we've tossed in some scenic elements. Let's actually jump over into Patch and add some fixtures. So inside of Patch, I'm just going to select my channel, and 1 here, and we now have a new Augmented tab. So for instance, if I want to come in and just add some information here, as soon as I hit any of these values, you're going to get position and orientation information assigned. So notice I've got channel 1 here with position orientation. Channel 2 does not have any position orientation. That means channel 1 will show up in Augmented, channel 2 will not. Once you have given it any amount of position and orientation information, it's inside of Augmented. That's all you have to do. We don't have to worry about addressing. In fact, I don't even care where it's addressed. That fixture is now assigned inside of Augmented. So if I jump into my Augmented tab for a second, there it is. And I can use this to move around and position it wherever I want. If I want to leave patch and go fully into edit, that fixture is now there. It's going to come in as its channel 1, and I can use the same move tools that I had before to place this wherever I want it to be. So I can come in, I can move these around. You can do all sorts of really powerful tools. If I jump back into patch for a second, I'm going to come in and say, all right, I would like channel 1 through 10. I would like to set their position of, let's see, how about -10 through 10. So now I have just come in and I have arrayed them across my stage, starting at -10 and going to 10. And then I can also come in and say, you know what, I actually would like these all at a 10-foot hang height. So you can do some really powerful arraying tools there. I want to just take a look at some of that syntax touch because it does get slightly complicated because we are now working from one XYZ point to another. So if I come in and say, I would like this to, I'm just going to do a slash, that's going to say leave your X the same, and now do a -10 through /10. So basically, if you notice, it's going through and it's putting an asterisk for any of my XYZ points. This will now give me sort of a stagger this way. So you can come in and really define this however you want using that range tool. So then we go back into our edit tool. We have all of these inside there. If you notice that little dot, that's their hang points. So give me the ability to place that wherever you want. So we can push these up and play around them as well. So talking just about conventionals for a second, there's quite a bit of other things we can do here. So if I jump back into patch, I have the ability to set some information for the individual ones. So by default, everybody's going to come in as a 36 degree. If we would like to change that, we can just go ahead and select some channels, grab the whole group here, and say, you know, I really like these to be 19 degrees. So click on beam angle, set that to be whatever you want. Inside of database, you have gobo and gel options. So if I would like these all to be Roscoe 80, I can come in and set that. And now, when we go back into live, printed, I grab my 1 through 10. I'm going to have all those in with Roscoe 80. And then just jumping back in there again, let's go ahead and just take that out for this one. Gobo. So I can come in here, go to Apollo, their metal gobos. So once I select all these, that'll assign, go back into live, and I now have that set up as much as I want. So once you've gone through and set all this up for your individual fixtures, and we'll talk about some other resources for doing that in a second. There's some other some aiming options we have. So aiming is a slightly convoluted concept when you first start thinking about it, but it does get, you have to wrap your head around it a touch because we have to do it in slightly 2 different ways. So I'm going to just come back into live and turn these off. So when I am inside the Augmented Edit window, if I select a channel, just like normal in the command line, it will put it into sort of a highlight mode. And that allows you to come in and see exactly what's going on. So as I select any of these, I get the ability to step through and see exactly what's going on inside there if I hit the right button, choosing each one of these. We then have an aim tool. And the aim tool is going to work with whichever ones you have selected inside here. So you kind of have to select it twice. So I selected on my command line and I selected here. And I know that sounds a little convoluted, but the reason we're doing that is it allows me to basically say, all right, I would like to see my 1 through 10, type 1 through 10 all on, but I just want to aim this particular. So selecting it turns them on from the command line, and then choosing them inside the window chooses which one or group you would like to select. So if I hold Control I can now push and hold and move these around. So to do that, I select my aim tool, and then I push and hold and drag these wherever I want. So you could do this by selecting your entire group, and you can select them just by holding Control and clicking on them here, or you can select them in the hierarchy pane. It's really up to you. Now I can grab all of these and position them anywhere I need, anywhere I want. So giving me the ability to focus them while I see them all. If I want to do them individually, come in and do things just like this, so I can start building any of my position points options there. Now, this is really useful if you want to come in and give your students the ability to work with a rep plot or create their own and focus all of these lights with whatever gels, with whatever gopos. Oh, I didn't talk about shutters. We can do that as well. So if I jump back into Patch for a second, and I like jumping into Patch and then sharing my command line here. So I'm going to grab that, and inside here, let's go ahead and jump into Augmented, and I'm going to actually make this a 36 degree, and then go into Shutters, and that will bring up the Shutter tool, where I can come in and start working with all of this. And you can also rotate the gobo. You can set all of your different options there. Now, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time going into it in this particular presentation, just because of our time with you guys today. But if you do have all this work done in Vectorworks, we do have a Vectorworks plugin. It is right now just for PC. We're working really hard on a Mac version, but basically it is a secondary piece of software that you install into Vectorworks, which gives you the ability to export your information for Vectorworks, either 2019 or 2020, into an augmented file that you can bring in and play around and have options inside there. So if you've done all of this work with positioning inside of Vectorworks, or you have a Vectorworks file you can share with your students, you can have the ability to bring that around and work with that. So we've been talking.
Go ahead and pause there for a moment. We've got a ton of great questions coming in.
Great. Perfect.
So I'll start with the Vectorworks related ones since we're right here. Matthew wants to know, will Vectorworks pipes and hanging positions import correctly, or do we need to use the augmented pipe tool?
No, they should. Anything that is in there should come in. Now, I should just explain a little bit. There are actually two paths with Vectorworks. So your hanging positions and things like that will come in as scenic elements. So you'll have to export that just normally using one of their Vectorworks DAE or FBX exports. The fixtures only are what's coming in through the plugin. And we're working with Vectorworks on some ways in the future we could potentially align that. But for right now, you do your scenic export and you do that your fixture export. That is all detailed in some of those videos and in the manual as well.
And then based on, just to expand on that, based on my experience, everything coming in from Vectorworks is one object. So if you wanted to move those pipes around independently in the augmented model, you would need to export them one at a time. Is that correct?
Yeah, there are a couple different options.
Electric or second electric.
When you bring something in, you have the option to choose whether or not it's going to be coming in as one thing or whether you want to explode it and have access to others. In my personal experience, every CAD program handles it slightly differently. So I would prefer to bring in multiple instances as opposed to one big. So as we're working with hanging positions and venue, like maybe bring your venue in as one thing and then bring in your hanging positions as a couple different separate. And then your scenic elements as other objects. Because you can add as many things as you want inside of the augmented scene.
Looking at some of the questions, I've been skimming through them, and I know we're trying to go through some order, but there's a lot of different Vectorworks-based questions that are in here.
Okay.
And I thought since we were talking about it, maybe it might be a good idea to go through all of them at this moment. And maybe looking at an Augmented and Vectorworks session might be a better way to go. That's
not a bad idea at all.
But just to throw a couple of these questions out there, and you can determine how deep you want to go into answering them. Will fixtures imported from Vectorworks models be added to the patch? And if not, is there a different way to accomplish Vectorworks and EOS patch import?
Yeah, let's just take a real quick spin through that. So I'm going to back out here. So inside of import, you have an augmented from Vectorworks. And this is where we're going to import our lights. So let me see. So once you go to bring that in, you're going to have an option for map devices. Sorry, I've done many, many test versions here. I'm trying to grab the one that's right. Sorry, I'm not prepared for that one. But basically what's going to happen is, I can talk you through it. You're going to come up with a bunch of fixtures that are the Vectorworks information inside source file. You choose the EOS file and map them together, and once it does that, it'll go directly in.
Thank you. Another question here, and this one again, if you want to you may want to cover it briefly here, and we could look at making a more expanded session. Is XYZ and orientation data for instruments brought in when Vectorworks is linked to LightWrite, and then LightWrite is linked to EOS?
Hang on, I got to think that one through in my head.
Yeah, I had to figure out how to read it correctly so that it made sense.
I believe the answer is yes. The LightWrite to EOS part is the one I'd have to check on. If you've linked your Vectorworks and your LightWrite, and then you export it using the plugin, absolutely. But I don't think we've actually done the live link between EOS and LightWrite on that implementation. You might have to just sidestep through the Vectorworks plugin for that. But I'd have to take a look at that. It's been a while since I played with LightWrite.
Fair. Some questions
Well, you
about...
mentioned...
Go ahead.
Sorry, David. Lowell, you mentioned the 2019 and 2020 plugins. Are there any plans to do the plugin for older versions of Vectorworks?
Unfortunately, no. 2019 added a whole bunch of the stuff that we needed to do this. So right now, it's just going to be 19 and 20 and on. We've had some chats with Vectorworks about what we could potentially do to help people come from older versions forward. Unfortunately, my best advice for you is find a friend for the most recent version. But we're always taking a look at ways for some options.
And we may get to this, but there's several questions about how to associate fixtures with hanging positions. Is that something we should save for a few minutes from now?
So we don't have a hard link where you define a pipe and then snap to something yet. It's very much on the to-do list. Basically, we're taking a look at 1.1, which is all about that kind of stuff. But for right now, it's just sort of that manual position or that Vectorworks import.
Because I know there's a way to folder objects together, which is...
Sure, we can talk about that a little bit. Yeah, so that's not really for initial setup, but basically what you can do is you can take your channels and you can nest them into an object. So I put them in this pipe now. And at this point, when I select the pipe and I move that around, it's going to move everything inside of the nested group. So that's really useful for when you have set up initially, but we don't really have a way to say, okay, here's my position, snap my lights to it, and then set my spacing on that yet. Very much something we would like to do in the future.
And then a couple questions about gobos, because we looked at gobos earlier.
Sure.
Just need to find them. Will we be able to search them by manufacturer and gobo number?
Yeah, not right now, and I am as not happy about that as you are. I very much would like to add that functionality in the future. We're just not there yet. So right now, you have to come in and sort of sort through their catalogs. I totally understand that is not ideal, and we would like to add some functionality to make that better in the future.
And there's been several, this is from a little while ago, there's been several folks asking about not being able to find build 312 on the website. So that is actually on the closed beta site, everyone. So the current open beta version is 307. Yeah, no problem. But you all should be able to find 307 and 312.
Or the close one. I'm sorry.
Or
307.
There.
Yeah. 307 is definitely there. 312 will be there very, very soon. And then I just misread the email that I sent. So my apologies there.
Well, why don't we, there's still several questions here. We will get to all of them. I think we should move forward a little bit. I'll answer some of them privately if they're specific. We'll take another break for questions in a few minutes.
Perfect. All right. So from here, we've been talking about conventionals. I want to talk a little bit about moving lights and some of the functionalities you can do here. So I'm just going to jump into my patch screen, and we'll grab some channels. Let's just do. Now, just like normal, we're going to go into patch. We're going to go to type, and we're going to go to manufacturer or search, however you patch your fixtures. I'm just going to grab the high-end solar frame series because it's the one I know the best. So I'm going to come in here. Now, just like we did before, as soon as you add them in, you have the option to come in and set some information. All we need to do is come in and set that, and we'll just give them a little bit of range. And now when we jump into Augmented, there they are. So slightly higher Z. Get the options to play with that. All right, so I'm going to jump back into live and go into Augmented again. Just like we were playing with before, I can come in, I can select all of these and turn them on. Now I am working in live here, so we've got some options, and just my higher so we can see what we're working with. At this point, once I have them selected, I can just click and hold and drag them around, and that's going to give me my ability to interact. I'm going to come in here and just split my screen for a second so we can talk about things. All right, so as we're working inside here, we have the ability to interact with all of these. Pretty much anything that we're working with inside here will give me that color information. I can see it. I can see gobos. I can see pan and tilt information. I can place that all around. If we want to come over, and we'll just make these a little bit bigger. I'll zoom those up. Gobo. We can do some edging and focus options here. So if you want to make that a little bit more sharp. Now, I am not in the highest quality, so it's jumping around a little bit. If you want to play with the individual pieces, you've got those options. As I deselect pieces, I can then move all this around. And I can really use this as a way to just sort of build my scenes, build my looks. So at this point, I want to talk about some of the tools that we've added over here. The first one is our label option. So inside labels, you've got the ability to do two different things, either fixture labels or focus handles. The fixture label, you can choose whether you want to see all of them, maybe just your movers, just your selected, or just your active. So I like working in selected. I think it's really useful for me to come in and say, I've got 1 through 10 here. It's showing me exactly where all that information is. Or if I double click and deselect and then grab them around, you can take that a little bit further, and we can put something at the halfway point of the beam, or we can use these focus handles, and they get a label option as well. So the focus handles are give us the ability to select our beam and move it around. Now notice this keeps the relationships between the fixtures together. So if I come in here and just select one fixture and grab it and move it around, I've got the ability to just control it. If I select multiple fixtures, it's going to keep all of those beams together. So if you come through and you've made that really nice, clearly not very nice, really nice, fan across the stage or whatever gradient or ombre you're trying to move, and then just grabbing that all and pulling that up or down the stage. Some really powerful options there. The last thing, which is one of my absolute favorite things in Augmented, is called stick beams. And what stick beams does is draws a line from the gate of the fixture down to where it is, so you can see exactly where that fixture is, regardless of what's going on in the beams. So I'm going to come here. I'm actually just going to turn my beam intensity up and my ambient down so we can see the beams a little bit better. So now we can see exactly where those beams are. Now, what's really fun about this is it doesn't require intensity. So if I turn them off and turn my ambient light up a little bit so we can see exactly where all those beams are. So you can actually work with these fixtures when they are off. So I want to come over, I want to position them, see exactly where they are, and then turn them back on again. Ambient a little bit here. So, giving you that ability to see exactly where those fixtures are, where they're pointed. If we want to take a look at something like our conventionals, we can take a look and see, where our focus points might be, where our individual target points. So you can really help you kind of shape exactly what's going on inside that. Now, remember, you can also navigate around to see any of these positions a little bit better. And then we also have a feature called Fixture POV, which I'm a huge fan of. And what that does is it puts you in the gate of the fixture. So if we jump to that moving light, we can see exactly where the fixture is seeing. So helping you come around, and if you want to still pan and tilt a little bit, you've got those controls, those options, seeing exactly where those individual fixtures are. And then when I'm done, I can just jump back to where I was before, or maybe go back to one of our predefined home positions, like that bookmark we wrote earlier. So, as I'm working with all this, as I'm setting it up, this is just EOS like it always has been. So all of our command line information here is the same. Everything is really just exactly the same, which gets us into the next topic I want to talk about, which is how we can record some of these cues and play with it. Why don't we take just a quick second and see if there's any questions before we jump into that. I can grab some water.
Sure, Lowell. I've been going through and answering some of these
Okay.
already. Let's see. Is there a way to lock focus of a fixture to prevent accidentally unfocusing it after you have it where you want it, specifically for conventionals?
Sure. So the conventional aim tool only works inside edit. So once I am in live and I've got my fixture, I can click wherever I want on the stage. It's always locked to that specific point. It's only going to move it when you're inside of that edit. And that was a very deliberate decision that I wanted to have for this, so that we would exactly be in that situation you were talking about, and making sure that we are not accidentally grabbing something in the middle of our show, grabbing a conventional by accident and moving it like a mover. So yeah, that tool only works inside edit. Great question.
Is there a trick to moving the fixtures with the focus handles? I can click on the handle, but then not move anything. My guess would be it might be a conventional fixture, but is there another thing we should look at?
Shouldn't be. Yeah, if you select that, I mean, I know it is not necessarily the biggest target in the world. Actually, no, I'm seeing that. I think it might just be target size. Yeah, you should always be able to grab those.
Mike, if you're still having issues, go ahead and email one of us afterwards, and we'll see if we can help. And then does all this translate into the live table to be recorded as a cue?
It does. Perfect timing. Let's talk about that. So if I want to just come in here and read, sorry, live table is hiding from me. I'm paying attention. So if we take a look at our live table here, all of that information as we're working through is going to be directly updated in the live table. And not only can I record this, let's record my Q1, and then I come over and say, all right, you know what? I want all of you on in this bearish, terrible look. And let's just put some color here. And I can record this as my Q2. And now, as I step through my cues here, so as I execute my cues, I will see my transitions. I will see all of that. So you can use this absolutely for queuing. But this also works inside of blind. So if I want to come in, jump into blind and see augmented, now as I next and last through my cues, while not doing any form of transitioning inside of blind, I can absolutely see my cues. I can come in here, grab a fixture, make my updates inside of blind, giving us this concept of blind preview. So we can work through all of the different options for setting up our different cues, both in live and blind, inside of Augment. And then if I go back into live for a second and just step through that, I'll have all of that different information. You can really see all of the different movements, all of the different positionings, your marking information. everything that you would see in a live space, but now just in this sort of virtual space as well. So
and we have a question. If you work in blind, does it automatically update every time you move a fixture?
It does. Yep. So working in blind in Augmented is going to be the exact same as working in blind in your channel table or your live table.
And then is there a way in blind to do a queue only change?
I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to take a look at that. Rob, do you know the answer?
Yeah, I would think you'd have to put it in queue only mode
before
making an edit. So maybe a macro to swap that back and forth.
It's got to follow the same rules that you currently have. So if you're making a change in blind right now, it is in your tracking, it will track. So yeah.
And most of the time we want our non-intensity parameters to track anyway. So.
Okay. Cool. All right. So I think at this point, since we are just about at our time mark here, before some Q&A stuff, I want to just take a moment and open up some of these example show files, step you through, show you a little bit of what's going on inside there, and then we can step back to some questions. Guys, just sort of scratching the surface here, I wanted to get you to a place where we could come in, add some fixtures, do some exercises with your students, but we can absolutely do more of these and some discussion. So let's jump into that proscenium one first. Open that. Great. To Augmented here. So I'm just going to sort of fly around, show you what's going on inside here. Quality back down for a second because we're sharing this. It's definitely not going to play on ultra right now. So inside here, we just come up and take a look. We have a number of battens. These are all inside Augmented, so they actually do have their full position information. There is a large amount of conventionals, a decent amount of some LED top lights, and as I mentioned, none of these are focused, so I think this would be a really kind of fun exercise to come through, figure out your focus points, your positions. I left this stage intentionally blank. There is quite a bit of stock objects, as we mentioned, so you can feel free to come in and add that. If you want to modify this a little bit before giving your students, if you want to put in a full set piece, feel free. I think that would be a really fun. Everything in here is all set up, ready to go, ready to be focused. It does have a simple gel patch, which is, I believe, included in the documentation that I put in there. But of course, these are yours to modify and play with as much as you want. So a couple of different boom positions, soundstage here, and mid. And then we do have a couple of releve spots, 4 of them just in the center to sort of cover all of that. So if we jump back into live for a second here, take a look. So all conventionals for the first little bit, then some color source pars for top lights, a couple of source 4 lusters for some top and high side, and then there's a cyc set in the back and a couple of releve spots in this one. So this was designed for me by the wonderful Tom Luttrell, who had some fun setting that up last week. Jumping into other ones, the fashion show. Now we're getting to the ones I designed, so please don't hold that against me too harshly. Last week taking some pictures, so I put them up to ultra. So inside here, there are 10 conventionals just sort of in a line. There are 750s on either side. There are some color source pars. Just doing some general lighting, so you can do some fun color and effect work in there. And then I did this kind of fun runway lighting thing. Now, one thing that is an option inside of patch for Augmented is you can actually choose whether or not the lights are going to cast light or cast shadows and beams. So these actually are turned off, so they don't actually glow past their front view. And that's so we don't have bearish massive beams coming up just as we're looking around. But these are also set up, and I did set up channels, I think it's 1000, 1001 here, to work with some pixel mapping if you wanted to play around with that. And then different positions you can work with and views inside here. And just sort of navigating around. And then jump into our last one. This was a little concert venue I put together. A little bit. So just a small little truss page. A little bit of truss in here. Some color source pars inside the truss for up and down light. 4 conventional specials. Rob, I was kind of laughing at this. This goes back to our old school capture training file, if you remember that. It sort of reminded me of it. But yeah, coming in here, taking a look at some of our options. So basically, it's just 1 through 4 are your conventionals on the individuals there, and then some just general par wash light, color source pars, and then uplights, downlights in the truss, and then a good amount of truss of solar frame fixtures inside here. I'm gonna have some fun with. See, that was 31 through 6. So you can do some fun effects with just playing around with this. Again, just kind of what was in my mind as I was thinking what would be fun for a couple different demo files. Feel free to take these and use them, modify them. If you have some ideas for other things that would be nice, let us know. We are more than happy to create some more show files. And we're here to help. Cool. So we have just about 10-15 minutes left. I wanted to just take the time and open it up to questions and chat and see if there's anything that we can go through.
Thanks for putting all those venues together, Lowell. Those are awesome. I've got a couple of, actually, I've got one from long ago. Thank you, Lee, for your patience. And it ties in with a recently asked question. He wanted us to point out that it works. So when you initially went into the software, you went into the offline with Viz function. Yep. And his point was you don't have to have that. It works in standard offline mode. And then the question that just came in is, I'm planning on buying an Ion as soon as everyone is back on campus and able to do the paperwork. Can I use my free time now to download all the software and start building my theater, planning my patch, etc., so that I can load it on my console later?
Absolutely.
And yes. Just like all of our EOS software, you can always make changes or start a brand new show file if you want offline and then load it onto a console at a later time.
Oh, one thing we should actually just mention, we did something a little bit different with 3.0. You can actually have 3.0 and 291, what are we on, Rob? 29 something.
291.
291, thank you. 291 installed simultaneously. So if you have your console and you're keeping it in sort of its normal mode, but you want to switch over and play with 3.0, it's actually an option inside of the shell. You can choose which one you want to be in. So you can have them running simultaneously, which is kind of a cool new thing we've never done before.
I've got a few. I still have several Vectorworks related questions. I'm going to hold those to the end.
Yeah,
answer everything else first. That way, if you guys need to jump off, or if you're not that concerned with Vectorworks, you're not sitting through all that. So a couple good questions about general workflow. Let me. Here it is. I get that it is not a visualizer. This is from Adam. I get that it's not a visualizer. Could you explain where Augmented sits in the EOS visualizer relationship? Is there still a need for a visualizer?
So, you know, one of the things that I've been saying since the beginning of this is that a visualizer is trying to get you that perfect photorealistic representation, where a 3D programming tool is all about, I want these lights and I want them right, right here, right there, wherever I want them to be. And there is a lot of need for visualizations to get that photorealism. And that's not really where we're trying to target. We want to have something that is a helpful tool for your workflow. So if you are still using Vision or Capture or Wig or anything like that, I don't think we're telling you to stop using that by any means. And I think it's really powerful to be able to have these two tools working together. We've spent a lot of time with our friends at Capture and a lot of times with our friends at Vectorworks and the other places, developing something we can all use. Programming with this tool is our most important goal. But there's a little bit of crossover, no doubt. There are things you can do in this depending on what level of visualization you need. Absolutely. But we wanted to make a programming tool.
And then a real easy one that you can probably show real quick. Can you control the ambient level of haze in the space? Can you visualize other forms of atmospherics in the current version?
Sure. So inside of our light options, you do have some beam intensity ability, and you do have a little bit of haze. Depending on what quality you're on, it's going to show more than not. That was something that was sort of crossing that line between photorealism and programming for us, and we didn't want to spend a huge amount of time with that on the bat. It's something we're going to take a look at how we can improve as we go. But basically, you just have a haze on-off concept, and then setting your different beam intensities for whatever options of the haze density, if you will.
And this just came up again about the focus handles. So Uli, one of our awesome programmers in Germany, pointed out that apparently focus handles were broken in 3.07. So if you've downloaded the most recent version, your focus handles will not work, but we promise we will fix that as soon as we can.
Thank you, Uli. Uli's here keeping me on track.
So Mike, that's the answer to your question too. It's not you, it's us. A couple other general ones.
Remember,
here.
folks, it is an open beta. It's not 100% polished yet. We're still working.
Can you import and visualize projectors and control them with Hypnotizer?
Not quite yet. Definitely something we have some interest in the future. As I mentioned earlier, we're creating this 3D world and figuring out the different things we want to add to it.
And then what about seeing the question? I'll just read it verbatim. It says, "Can we see pixel moving on the pixel mode?" I assume that refers to like a Solapix fixture or a fixture with multiple.
Yeah. So we definitely have been spending some time working with pixel mapping fixtures. It is still a work in progress. We do have some of that support. It's not 100% there. So that's definitely something you'll consider. You'll see considerable change and improvement as we continue working.
A couple other ones, and then I want to talk about FPE before we wrap up. Does the origin always have to be on the deck? Is it possible to put the focus? I'm trying to understand this question. Is the focus point always on the deck? Is it possible to put the focus handle at, say, the 5-foot mark?
Yeah, I totally forgot to show you that. Let's talk about that.
The offset. That's what we're talking about.
The offset, absolutely. All right, let me jump back over here. I'm just gonna turn it off. All right, so that is an incredibly powerful point, and we should talk about that. So I'm going to just turn on these fixtures. Now, if I come over here and I click right here, they all go there. But if I want to focus them on the chest or the face of the person who's standing there, I can't because there's no person there. Now, we have a fake person here, so we can focus on them, but that's not really useful because you'd have to put people in every particular position you'd want. So what we can actually do is you come into focus, and you can set as the offset height. So if I want to focus at foot, now when I click on this person's feet, it's actually going to go up. whatever that offset is. And you can actually manually adjust this by holding your left mouse and scrolling your mouse wheel if you're using a 3-button mouse. If you're not, you come over here and just set that focus position to be whatever you want. And then now, as I move these and bring it around. Now, what's really powerful about this is it is going to offset from whatever object you're clicking on. So I'm clicking on the deck right here, so it'll offset. If I click on this cylinder, it'll now offset from that. If I click on top of this drum, it'll offset from that. This is also quite useful if you use this in conjunction. As you can see exactly where those focus points are. Thank you. I totally forgot to show that.
All right, a couple more. Can you create a hard copy of a plot?
Kinda. So we didn't quite go that far, but one of the things you can do is I can come in here and I can select my channels, and I can actually create a magic sheet from this channel location. So if I click on that, we'll do this on the top down, create magic sheet 1. And then if I come over here and I want to, there it is. I can use that to actually create a magic sheet for me. And then you could export this as an image. So we haven't gone into full documentation concepts quite yet, but you could do some kind of cool stuff with that.
And then can we talk about FPE for a minute? I know it's hard to show.
Sure.
Format, but describe
I sort of skipped FPE because nobody's really in a space to use it. But FPE is fixture position estimation. And basically what that means is you have these 4 points. They're always going to be there in every show you create. You can delete them if you don't want to use them. But basically what you do is you put these 4 points in 4 places that they would actually be in your space. So I have it at the foot of each of my trusses for this particular one. Then when you're in your actual space, what you can do is select all of your fixtures, focus them all on that first point, record that as a focus palette. Focus them all on the second point, record that as a focus palette, the third point, focus palette, fourth point, focus palette, and so on. You have a minimum of 4 points. You can have a maximum of 8. If 4 isn't quite as accurate, depending on your space, sometimes you want to add a 5th or a 6th. But basically, once you've done that, we can go into Patch. Mode here for a second. So inside of Patch, you have the option to set which focus palette it is. And then what we want to do is you assign the sets to the individual fixtures, calculate the FPE, and we will update the position and orientation of the fixture in your space. So it's a way for you not to have to come in and manually go in and add each one of those individual fixtures at their individual positions. So tell us where in the space they actually are. And I did this manually just by moving them around, but you can type it in if you've measured it. And then we will calculate and place all those fixtures for you. It's a little tricky to show without actually having a real space. But some of the videos that we will be posting in a little bit will cover that as well. But a great way to not have to go in and do that.
And then a follow-up question, how good is FPE at estimating the position of an IQ?
Not very good. FPE is built around moving yoke fixtures, not moving mirror fixtures. We are taking a look at some ways to adapt that, but it is a very, very different set of math.
And then I've got a couple more before we leave all the Vectorworks ones for the end. Would you consider doing a webinar on how to replicate a venue in Augmented, something that we could use as a default starting point? Say it would include our electrics, but no fixtures. I mean, as a general answer, like sure. we are still looking for some webinar ideas. I don't know if that's something you'd want to take on, Lowell. But.
I think we can definitely chat about it. It's kind of comes down to everybody's venue is a little bit different, so trying to figure out something that would be beneficial for everyone, but not a bad idea at all.
And you may have said this at the beginning, and if not, or I'll reiterate. This is not a CAD program. Like Vectorworks does that really well. AutoCAD does that really well.
Yeah.
I know we spent a lot of time focusing on the import side of things. So I think a lot of that work would be done in one of those other programs. Would you agree with that, Lowell?
Yeah, if you have one of those other programs. I mean, I will admit I made that proscenium stage in Augmented and then went and put it into Vectorworks so I can make a Vectorworks file. You can do some of that. I definitely would not want to sit there and just using cubes and spheres and other things and build an entire space. Something like SketchUp or Vectorworks or any of the other 3D programs would be a really good use for that. But if you just want to roughen the space, one of my catch lines that everybody teases me about because I say it all the time is all you really need is a floor. You need something to focus on for the floor. Anything else is a bonus. If you have this drum set, if you have these truss pieces in there, it's really just giving you ways to focus. Right? Anything that is in there, I can now click on, I can focus. Anything that is not, I don't have the ability to click over here. But that floor gets you a good amount of the way towards getting started. But the more you add into your piece, the more you can get out of it.
If importing multiple scenic objects, can they be turned on or off to behave as scenic changes as you go through your programming?
Yeah, so that's a kind of slightly advanced topic that I wasn't planning on doing a full demo on, but we basically have a new channel type, two of them. One which is called scenic object and the other one which is called scenic object movable. You patch that just like any other channel. And then we were taking a look at how we can nest things in our hierarchy. Basically, they'll show up here. You can nest them to it, and then you can set their visibility and their position. If it's a scenic object movable, it's just visibility if it's a normal scenic object. And what you can do is basically just, if you give them an intensity above 0, they show up in Augmented. Give them intensity below 0, they don't. So you can actually build that directly into your Q stack. And as you go through your scenes, you can have it change. And then if you have the position one, you can not only have it change visibility, but position and rotation. And then you can do silly things like apply effects to them and have them actually start moving. Rob and I had a lot of fun doing that during one of the video filmings.
And I'll make this be our last kind of official question, and then we will get to these Vectorworks ones. But the question is, how do you reconcile virtual pan and tilt with the real world? So if your pan and tilt is inverted in the model versus your real space, or if your orientation is incorrect.
Yeah, orientation is the tricky one. You've got to try and do the best to get it where it is. If you're manually entering it, or FP really does help with that. We've actually seen a lot of situations where people have manually put in their fixtures and they use FPE to hit the orientation. It's going to be one of those things where it's a little bit of work we can help you with, but a little bit of work you need to do on your side. Try to make it as painless as possible. As for rotation, I believe we are now officially following all of the different stuff you can set and patch for invert pan, invert tilt, so it should all be there. Also, just make sure that your fixture is rotated the right 90 degrees, 180 degrees, whatever you need it to be. One of the things we added recently is little green dots, which actually show you where the cable side of the fixture is, so you can make sure that you have that oriented in the way that you want. So I have these mirrored from each other, which are probably backwards for some programmers, but that's what I did.
Great. David, should we do an official kind of sign off, and then since we're at time, and then we can come in and grab these Vectorworks questions?
Absolutely. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for all the time in this presentation. We still have about 140 people sitting looking to learn more information and get more questions answered. We definitely have a recording of this event that will be available and posted in the future. I'm going to go ahead and turn that recording off right now.